Welcome to Still Up with 6, where the conversation continues. We have a lot to get to, but first we want to say good morning and happy Tuesday to Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey there, good morning to you, Heidi. Yeah, certainly a lot to get to this morning. Some big news happening yesterday. The announcement coming from Governor Greg Abbott that phase 1 of the reopening process will be underway. So I think that this is going to be something we will discuss the ins and outs of, and we'll continue to answer people's questions at home as well, because there's still questions coming into our inbox about the stimulus check, about COVID-19 itself, as well as this reopening process.
Let's get to let's first off start off with a quick check of the numbers just to keep people updated on that. I know we like to do that to keep people informed. Here they are on your screen there. McLendon now has 87 cases. They reported 5 new cases. Bell County has 158. Brazos County still leading us here in Central Texas with 182 cases. Texas has over 25,000 cases. So there you go. Those are the latest numbers. But I think everyone's now wondering what's next for Texas. And Governor Greg Abbott talked in detail yesterday about what his plan consists of. Here are the details on that. The stay-at-home order is going to be lifted come this Thursday. On Friday, it is optional to reopen retail stores, restaurants, theaters, malls, museums, and libraries. But that comes with a catch. There's going to be a guideline. Only 25% occupancy is allowed at one given time. So that is the biggest news right now. This is the first step into reopening the state of Texas. In phase 2, if there are no new cases or surge in cases, it will allow for 50% occupancy to start on May 18th.
Yeah, so this is just going to be based on how this first phase plays out, right? If we see another spike in cases, we're going to have to scale it back a little bit. But I think that the most difficult thing to navigate right now will be that 25% occupancy. How do you monitor that? How do you gauge that? That's going to be something that retail stores, restaurants, theaters, malls, museums, and libraries are going to have to figure out as they go. I know that there's certainly some excitement among people who want to get back to work, but we have to remember that if we kind of rush too fast into this, there is a real fear and a real possibility that a second spike of cases could be possible.
Yeah, and that's why there's still the 6 feet social distancing is still in place. That's not gone away. It's still encouraged that you wear a mask even if those stores are open and you're out and shopping. But like you said, I do think it's going to be really hard to regulate the 25% capacity. I think stores are really going to base their decisions to reopen based off if they're going to be able to fulfill those guidelines.
Yeah, and it's important that even if you partake, or if you're a small business owner that gets to reopen right now, it's still important to make sure that we are still following social distancing guidelines. That's the only way that you will be able to stay open. But let's get down to it and start answering a couple of people's questions this morning real quick as we continue to discuss this reopening process. Kathy's asking about Social Security. Kathy, you will receive your check as you normally do for your benefits. So whether that's through the mail or through direct deposit, Gladys has also provided you some information that the IRS site is now more specific about when you might receive that stimulus check. Kara saying, I don't understand why folks are upset. They line up to clear the shelves in all stores to take all the paper towels and toilet paper. They don't think about their health then. It's an interesting comment. We have seen people not always practicing the right safety protocols in the grocery store. And we've had that conversation a number of times, Heidi, and I think it's important right now that we can't just treat this as life is back to normal again. We have to treat this as this is a step in the right direction, but we must remain vigilant or else we're going to go backwards.
Yeah, we're going to go backwards, and we're going to have to put even stricter rules than we saw the first round. Maxine's asking if DPS offices are opening up too. We have not gotten any word on those opening up right now. It's still just retail shops, the malls, the movie theaters, restaurants, libraries, and museums.
Yeah, and as we continue to navigate this and potentially move into phase 2, we're going to see more and more things opening up. But remember, gyms and beauty salons, hair salons, nail salons, all not allowed to reopen right now. So I don't want people to see these headlines that businesses are starting to reopen and think that they can head to the gym. Still, not until probably May 18th, mid-May, mid to end May, barring the number of cases going up. That would be the possibility then.
Yeah, and that includes bars as well. Just because restaurants are opening, bars are not opening. So keep that in mind as well.
Let's see. Let's get to some other comments this morning. No mask, no distance. People don't comply. There are a number of people that don't comply, but we also want to focus on the people that are doing the right things. You know, I was out at the store yesterday for the first time in a while, and most people have masks on. Most people are understanding the concept of social distancing. I was encouraged to see more individuals than families than I usually see at the grocery store. So we do want to remind you to continue doing those types of things.
The thing that makes me really curious about lifting the stay-at-home order is how many more people are we going to see out and about? How many people are going to take advantage of those restaurants opening, of those movie theaters opening, and which movie theaters are going to open considering there are no new movies coming out? That was something that Director Sean Hobbs pointed out to me, is that there are no new movies being released, so he doesn't think that any of the major movie theaters will be opening anytime soon. Of course, it's not required to open. We do want to note that. So if your favorite restaurant has decided they don't want to open up dining, then they're not going to, and they don't have to. I know that one of my favorite places here locally decided to not open because it's going to be very hard for them to count and keep track of that 25% capacity. That's going to take a whole system in itself to build for each business that is operating. So we have to keep that in mind. So that does not mean that every store is required to open, only the ones that think they can comply with the rules.
So we've got a couple of questions, as we have throughout this pandemic, about daycares. We have not received any word that daycare is expanding any of its operations beyond what it's already doing for essential workers. So that should remain in place right now as far as we're aware. But if there's any word about daycares and the expanding of the reopening process with them, we'll be sure to update you as well.
Timothy is saying, I wouldn't be opening malls or theaters. Instead, I'll be opening up barbershops and salons. They can make better choices of who comes in and who don't, and how many people can come in at a time. But malls and theaters, good luck. I think that's a good point coming from Timothy, right? It's much easier to control a smaller area than it is a big area. When you think about how big the mall is, let alone how many entrances there are to the mall, I do think it's going to be very tough to monitor how many people are there at one time. Whereas when you think about a nail salon, my nail salon is fairly small, so I think they can count how many people, they can do the math, and they can be able to form a line outside or even make it appointment based only. But again, you have to think about the services of barber shops and nail salons. It's really close contact to your face or close contact to your hands or touching you, and that's something that they're trying to avoid right now as we continue to social distance.
Abdul is asking about crossing over to Mexico. Abdul, we can tell you right now the border to Mexico still remains closed right now. That is a national mandate. That is not something that the state of Texas can reopen on their own. So that remains closed right now. If people who are looking to travel to Mexico, that is the case with border crossing at this point.
Let's see. No word on daycare.
Heidi, I think an interesting conversation about this is when we talk about a second spike. I think that right now it is so crucial that we don't have a second spike, because that could set us even further back. We're finally seeing some resurgence on Wall Street, which is so encouraging to the national economy. So it's important that the states that are hardest hit by this, you know, keep in mind New York, Washington, those types of states, that they don't reopen in any ways right now. I think that this will be an interesting almost experiment here in the state of Texas as to whether or not some reopening phases will work or if it'll do more damage in the long run.
And Dolores saying, will dental offices be open for non-emergency treatments? That's a good question. I know that a lot of dentist offices were able to open in the event of an emergency, but I'm not too sure in regards to non-emergency treatments. That was not highlighted in Governor Greg Abbott's press conference yesterday, so I think we're going to have to wait and see on that one. But I do know that some offices are operating based off emergency patients, so give them a call and see what the new rules are for them.
Yeah, I do want to say that the governor did talk about dental offices yesterday. So there were some updates with dental offices, and they will be allowed to reopen here in the near future. So that was actually part of the announcement yesterday. But as for your local office, I think that that's going to be, you know, it's still, you know, the discretion of any individual business, whether that's a dentist office, whether that's a restaurant or a retail store. They don't have to reopen. They can just choose to if they want to.
So they do, just to reiterate, they do fall under the reopening on Friday. They can reopen if they choose to, Chris?
That is the information that I'm seeing here on the Texas Dentist information page, and as well as a number of different news articles as well. But I can tell you right now that this will be at the discretion, and a lot of dentist office you'll see will probably choose not to reopen just because of the proximity that dentists have to their patients' faces. We know that that's typically a pretty dangerous distance to be, so I would not be surprised to see a number of dentist office in fact not reopening. Will the state troopers continue to monitor travelers coming into Texas from Louisiana? Good question. That restriction will be lifted as well. How do you want to get more into that?
Yeah, so we can tell you that there was a 14-day quarantine requirement from anyone traveling from Louisiana into the state of Texas. That will be lifted as well. They will no longer have to quarantine. That is something that the governor also discussed yesterday. He actually took to Facebook to announce those changes. It will, though, be in effect for other states and cities that have a high amount of cases, but in specific, Louisiana to Texas, you will no longer have to quarantine for 14 days.
Absolutely, and you guys have had a lot of great questions here on Still Up with 6. The conversation will continue tomorrow, and if you have any questions that you want to ask me in regards to Verify, remember that my email address is crogers2@kcentv.com. We do have to wrap things up here on a Tuesday morning, but have no fear. We'll be back tomorrow morning. If you want to watch Texas Today, that's 4:30 to 7 a.m., but we will still be here streaming on all platforms right after the show.
Have a great day.